I had a woman in therapy several years ago who came from Baghdad. She was from Iraqi Jewish family. Her parents sent her with her uncle as the first child to Israel when the riots in Iraq started and Baghdad started. And she grew up feeling that her parents did not want her. And the parents came later with the rest of the children. But they lived in a kind of a temporary settlement. She was already adopted in a family in kibbutz, so she did not join them. They stayed in this. So she grew up all her life, all her adult life, with this feeling that my parents didn't want me and sent me out. And when we met in therapy, I asked her, could it be that your parents sent you out because they cared for you more? And she said, no way. So I asked her, do you have anyone to ask? Her parents died already. I could ask my brother, but he would not remember. Could you ask him? And that was, I tried to convince her to ask her brother, and she asked him, and then she found out for the first time that every Friday night there was a chair for her near the table, that the mother never actually gave up. She continued to make socks for her and to make clothing for her. And it was really true that her mother, the parents deeply loved her, and that actually they really sent her out first out of care. And the interesting thing was that when she found out about that, it was an extremely difficult moment for her, because she already built 47 years of life with this image of being the unloved child of the family. And now to understand that she was a loved one was almost impossible for her to comprehend. And the most difficult work with her was on this part. Can she take it, or can she take actually both? We compromised that maybe in some respect she was less loved, but in some respect she was the most loved one. And can she now fit it into her life? She was not married, she had a child out of marriage because she didn't trust anyone to marry. All kinds of these things. And so I think such crucial moments, by the way, the moment of the separation from the parents is the most difficult moment for children to reconstruct. The moment that the father or the mother gave her away or said goodbye. You can go with children through many different moments and trying to reconstruct them, but to reconstruct this moment is so difficult, because that moment is most hidden, covered up, because there are these extremely strong contradictory emotions are, why did they tear off? Why did they leave me? Why did they give me away? Why? These whys are very complicated to deal with. I saw her for 3 years, and she just more or less spoke constantly, without break. And she had a devastating story to tell, which she never told before, because no one was ever interested in listening at that time. It was in the early 70s, and no one then was interested to listen to stories of survivors. And just to give some points from that, she grew up in a very well-to-do Jewish family in Paris. Her father was a lawyer and one of the top people in his field in Paris, and her mother was also very well-to-do, educated, and the parents shortly divorced before the war broke out. When the war broke out and the Germans conquered Paris, he was one of the first people to be taken because the Germans already knew his name and looked after him. So the father vanished at a very early stage. The daughter was the child of the father. And now she found herself in a situation alien because she was with the mother and her brother, who were a kind of the son was the son of his mother, And she was alien to both of them because she was the daughter of her father. And now they had all to look for hiding. And they went to South France and they went into hiding. And they moved from one place to the other. And she was seen as a troubled child that could give them in. That was the name that they gave her. She would be, because she was creating trouble all the time, from their perspective. She never accepted the fact that her father really was taken away. She, till the age of 42, when she met me, she was still believing that the next morning the father will open the door and come back. And one of the first things that we did in the therapy was that she contacted the Red Cross and tried to find out. And she found out that her father was taken to Auschwitz and was arrived in Auschwitz on this and this date, and at that and that date he was executed or was brought to the gas chambers. And that was the first step of her healing, was to accept the fact that she was really left alone without her father. And then the second stage, which took about a year and a half, was to make her feel or sense that a lot of the things that she did when she was in hiding were not be a troubled child, but had their own logic or their own rights. And actually the way that her brother and her mother interpreted was from their perspective, but it was not true for herself. And that she had a different perspective, and she had the right to have a different perspective, and to give voice to that perspective. And it was a very hard work, and I think that was a major part of the therapy. Then we did a break, and then actually she came back to me when she went back to Paris and found the sculptor who did the sculpture of the head of her father, and found that sculpture and brought it home, and had a reconstruction of her father in her home in the form of that head. And actually got the legitimacy that she was a child of her father. Throughout the therapy, she had a dream which came up 3 times. And it got different interpretation by her every time. I think I write about it in I don't remember if in Legacy of Silence or in Fear and Hope, but I call her Dvora. I think maybe in both, actually in different contexts. But in her dream, there's a little child of 4 years old in a white skirt, sitting near the window where the curtain is moving with the wind, and her father is sitting near the piano and playing the piano. Her father was a pianist also. And at a sudden moment, the Germans come in, and they take her father away. And the first time when the dream came up, she felt like this little girl, 4 years old, admiring her father, sitting there, listening to him play the music, and totally devastated, and suddenly the Germans come in and the father vanishes. And that very much was in the frame of where she was at that stage, before she contacted the Red Cross and all that. After a year and a half, the dream came back again, same dream. But this time she felt like her father, playing the piano, looking at his daughter, enjoying the situation of being at home and playing the piano. And then suddenly the Germans come and take him away, and he can't be with his daughter. And I think it was very much in the frame of reference of where she was then, that she felt much more resilient in terms of already having her own story and having her own voice to some extent. And so it represented that stage. The third time she had a dream, it was after she came back from Paris with the head of her father. She had the same dream again, and that time she identified with the Germans. And she could associate with the anger that she felt toward her father of deserting her, with her mother and her brother. And actually when she had this dream and she could connect to this anger, it was the first time that the last picture of her saying goodbye to him in an improper way, because he left very hesitant, very fast, and did not have a time to hug her and to kiss her. And that picture came back to her for the first time. Till then, it wasn't there. It was never there. And actually, that was the moment, I think, where she really could separate from her father and say goodbye to him, and thereby. So it showed to me. It was my first experience with a survivor or child survivor. But first of all, what I learned, how much you have to listen and how long it takes till such a person really touches one layer after the other and goes from one to the other. And the only way that you can be is to be there all the time, at that pace. And many things happened in her real life during that time. She was in a kibbutz, she became a professional, she was a chemist, she worked in a factory, she decided to leave the kibbutz, she worked in a factory in the city, her children grew up, they married. So I think what was nice that actually you could also see how it affects her real life, but what was much more important was that this emotional healing and relating to one layer after the other, coming down till you reach some place where you can say, this is now the last layer of that part, of that memory.